Hey, hey, hey! Happy Monday, y'all. And welcome to another episode where I am live, combining everything faith, purpose, and profit so that you live as the highest and best version of who God created you to be. I'm always excited to have these moments where I really teach you how to master the marketplace, the way that God has intended you to do or be as you start or grow your business. So as you come in, tell me hello. You guys know me. If this is your first time, say, hey, Nicole, this was my first time. But if it's not, you already know what I'm going to say. My grandmother would say, actually, don't walk in this house and not speak. So don't come into my virtual studio that's in my house and not speak. So tonight is part 3 in a series that I've been doing. And I'm going to tell you right now, I thought part 3 was going to be it, but I have a part 4. Hey, Carol, excited to see you in the next hour. I'll tell y'all what that is in a minute. So listen, this is a series I've been doing called Do You Know Your Power? First of all, do you even know you're powerful? But also, do you know your power? This whole series is based on this Bible verse. I'm gonna put it up so you can see it. Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Now, again, I underline according to the power that works in us. So there's power already working in us. But the question is, do you know that you have power and are you working it? Are you doing what it takes to grow it, to maximize it, to be the exact version of you that God created you to be so that you have dominion and power? That's the whole point of this whole conversation. So, those of you that have been with me before, you know the way I teach, one builds on the next. If you've missed part 1 or part 2, I'm going to suggest you to go on over to my YouTube channel, NRJ Network, watch part 1 and part 2 of Do You Know Your Power? So, continuing this series, my conversation tonight is let me upgrade you. Now, this happened to me last week, y'all. I was at a meeting last week, and our conversation last week was Coming in Hot, which is a song title. As I was sitting, and I'm always prayerful, even though God outlined this whole series, but still I study in between each. And as I was studying for this series, what popped in my head is Beyonce's song, Let Me Upgrade You. Now, what I'm going to teach you has nothing to do with her song, but it has everything to do with that title. Why? Because I need you to understand that when you are trying to go after a version of you that you have not become yet, upgrading is non negotiable. I don't care how brilliant you are. I don't care if you have a title, a PhD, a doctorate, I don't care if you have the corner office. I don't care if you already make the 6-figure salary. God is still calling you to another level. And let me explain to you that I'm allergic to average. So where you are may look good to everybody else, but the reason why you have something stirring in you to start a business is because God has more for you to do, which means that an upgrade is needed and necessary. So before I dig into this conversation, as I was thinking about this, what it made me think of is when I moved into the house that I live in currently. So one of the things that my husband, now those of you that don't know, my husband is an ex-musician. He had an album out in the 80s and he has a studio in my house. Okay. So what I'm going to say to you, you'll understand why the brother was so excited. So he came and looked at my house to buy. He noticed that there's a sound system in just about every room, probably except for this one in the house. Not only are there speakers in every room, but they're also in the wall. There's a whole control panel. He was so excited that finally we wanted this in our house in Massachusetts. We couldn't figure it out, or it was too costly, and so we didn't do it. And he got excited because moving into this house, oh my God, it's already here. So we moved in, and the first thing he had on his list to figure out was what? The sound system. Guess what? Didn't work. Didn't work no matter what he did. You know why? Because the system needed an upgrade. See, the person that lived here before us put the system in probably in the early 2000s. And you guys know technology continues to grow. Actually, this house was built in 2007. How do I know that? Because it was built the year we got married. So anyway, that's how I will always remember that. So this house was built in 2007. So the electronics that were built in 2007, we've grown past that in almost 20 years. And even when you think about your phone, what happens when your phone needs an upgrade? Doesn't it seem like nothing works on your phone when you need an upgrade or is running really slow, or even your computer? Times when I'm trying to download something, I'm like, God, what is going on my computer? Or I'm trying to pull up a PowerPoint and it's not working. I realize what happens is your system needs to be upgraded. Well, this is the same thing that was happening with the children of Israel. Y'all know I'm going to bring some Bible in, right? So listen, you guys know, so let me give you some background. So the Moses, God raised up Moses. Even that's deep. Okay, let me not say that yet. That's deep. Okay, I'm gonna bring that up in a minute. That's deep, God. Thank you. When I say something's deep when I'm talking, that's because God just drops something in my mind. I'll tell y'all that and I'll give you the steps in a minute. But listen, Moses is raised in the palace, and then is the person that realizes I'm an Israelite, not an Egyptian, and he helps his people get free from the Egyptians. He takes them out into the wilderness to go to the promised land. Now, they don't get to the promised land before Moses dies. But what happens is Joshua, who was kind of like Moses' assistant, or I would say his protege, Bible says assistant, I would say protege. God says to Joshua, listen, I want you to take over. So that's where I'm going to pick up this story. This Bible verse, Joshua 1:6-7. This is God talking to Joshua. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Now you're like, what is all of that? What does that mean? By the way, go read this whole piece, y'all, because I only give you pieces. See, God is offering the same thing to Joshua that he's offering to me and you. There's three things that God is telling Joshua here. And these are the three things I'm going to walk you through here when it's time for an upgrade. Because guess what? It was time for an upgrade. Moses, his servant, had died. And by the way, I think it's 6:1-5 says, Moses, my servant, is dead. And then he starts talking to Joshua about what to do. God don't miss a beat. Because Joshua had been trained the whole time, y'all. Come on, somebody. So I really want you to get this. Really, really want you to get this. What's interesting when I think about my husband, who I met the day after I broke up with my previous boyfriend, my husband was already in the wings. I had met my husband 2 years prior. See, God knew 2 years prior that my current boyfriend was going to act a fool. Come on, somebody, right? And so when the time came and my best friend and his best friend, who were married at the time, connected us, see, God knew what he was doing when I met Daryl 2 years prior to that. Just like, excuse me, my allergies are off the chain tonight, y'all. So you're going to have to excuse me every time I drink a sip of water. God knew that he was going to use Moses in a certain way. He knew he was going to use Joshua in a certain way. But he also knew that the children of Israel needed to get in alignment in a certain way. And what does that have to do with you and growing your business? I need you to get three things when we talk about upgrading. See, what Joshua's story teaches us is deliverance, development, and destination. I'm going to show you what's this got to do with an upgrade. Oh, it's getting ready to get good, y'all. I'm trying to contain myself. Deliverance, development, and destination. Three things you got to get from Joshua and that apply to an upgrade. You ready? You got your pen? Okay, so let's talk number one, deliverance. Okay. Now, the thing that's interesting is deliverance means to be set free. To be set free. And see, what was happening is, now here's the thing that's deep. Okay, let me talk about deliverance for a second. This is what dropped in my spirit when I first started, y'all. So, Moses was an Israelite. When Moses was born, Pharaoh put out a decree to kill all the Israelite babies. So what Moses' mom did was she put him in the Nile. And who found him? The princess. Princess, Pharaoh's daughter, found him, and Moses was raised in the palace. You think that was an accident? God knew what he was doing. See, there were things that Moses could do that nobody else could do because he was raised in the palace. He knew how to talk to Pharaoh because Pharaoh was his grandfather. Come on, somebody. They don't even say that in the Bible. Can you imagine that? You're raised in the palace. You're raised with wealth and all the accoutrement of inheritance and prestige and people peeling grapes for you and getting you dressed. And then you realize, hold on, wait a minute. I'm not even an Egyptian. That's a whole long story of how he found he wasn't an Egyptian, but I don't have time for that tonight. But I want you guys to get this. God appears to him in a burning bush and says, listen, after he realizes all this stuff about himself, I sent you there because you're going to deliver your people. See, Moses could get into the palace and do some things that other people couldn't do. Hello, deliverance. So there's a reason why you had the job you had. You've learned what you've done, but at some point you got to realize that your job right now is no longer big enough for your gift. There comes a time when it's time for you to be delivered, to be set free from what yesterday was, because God has something bigger for you. And that's what was happening. What happened with Moses when he then was called to liberate his people that he didn't even know was his people, by the way. And then even as Moses dies and Joshua has to step in, the people of Israel were also delivered from Egypt. But the thing that's so deep, y'all, is when you are called to be set free, and I need you guys to get this, because many of you are so held onto the what do they call it? The golden handcuffs of corporate. And God is trying to set you free from that 9 to 5. He's trying to help you start your business alongside your 9 to 5, but you keep staying in them golden handcuffs. Come on, somebody. And that's what was happening with the children of Israel, by the way. Mhm. So the three things you got to understand. It took them 40 years to make an 11-day trip in that wilderness. Why? Because number one, they had to let go of Egypt. They hadn't let go of Egypt. So they kept saying things like, "Oh, I want to go back because it was comfortable over there." See, when you're doing something you've never done, it may seem uncomfortable at first because you're not used to it. It's like, when you buy a pair of shoes, y'all. How many times do you buy a pair of shoes and they're comfortable the first time you wear them? They not. You got to break them in. Well, see, they didn't trust God enough to break in the newness of the wilderness, a promise from God that there was a promised land. And God gives you that same promise. And many of you want to stay tied to your golden handcuffs, but you don't let go of yesterday. You don't let go of who you already are and go after who you have not yet become. See, number two, there's power in your pivot. Think about what a pivot move is. It's basketball playoff time. Basketball is my favorite sport, y'all. So listen, a pivot move means I'm having a hot flash when you see me start moving my hair around. A pivot move is when you have your foot in one place, you have the ball in your hand, your foot is in one place, but you can move one foot, but you can't move the other one. Okay. So what the children of Israel did not realize is you want to take the power of what you've learned from where you are, but you don't stay stuck in yesterday. That's that wilderness mentality. See, when you stay stuck in, well, I don't know how we're gonna do this. Well, guess what? You don't need to know. God knows. You get that? So I believe God puts us in a place that we don't know so we can truly trust him. He's not checking your bank account. He's not checking your bio, your resume. He's not checking the people you know. He's not checking your experience. He don't care about none of that. He is checking your faith, which is why it took them 40 years to get there because their faith was absent. So they had to let go of who they already were, but they kept going, well, what's so comfortable in Egypt? Why did we come out here again? Did you forget what God promised you? See, in the middle, it may not look like what it's going to be, but you've got to trust the process, right? So in the middle of it, they had to learn to trust God. So what's interesting is when you look at a system upgrade, it gives you access to new features. So deliverance, the first one, it gives you access to new features. So think about it, y'all. When your phone needs to be upgraded, I don't know about y'all, or even in my computer, when it needs to be upgraded, it gives you access to new features. So I get excited because things run differently or better, or I learn how to do a new thing that I didn't have before on my computer. Well, guess what? That's what they needed to do. They need to learn how to do a new thing instead of relying on old. It's like me having a iPhone and I'm still trying to use my flip phone. How many of y'all had a flip phone? No, we upgraded from that. So the reason my husband was trying to use this system, it wasn't working. It needed to be upgraded. Can I tell you guys, it was one little, we didn't even pay for it. I think it cost, no, that's not true. I think it cost $20. We had brought people in from, oh, can't think of the name of that place. Not Home Depot. Oh, I can't think of the name of the place. I'm having a senior moment. Hey, C. Marie. I can't think of the name of the place. Best Buy. Best Buy. He brought the people in from Best Buy, walked through the whole thing, told us $20,000 to put in a new system. We didn't need a new system. We needed to upgrade what we already had. Y'all see the difference? See, God's not telling you need a new system. You already have everything you need. Many of you need an upgrade. You need to learn how to take who you are and do it in a different way, which moves us into number two, which is development. Now, the thing that's so interesting about development is how many of you guys have ever seen that pinwheel that keeps turning? I didn't mean to turn on that already. How many of you guys seen that pinwheel? You know, when you are waiting to download something and the pin was up there, and are you ever impatient? Like sometimes I am. hmm That's what was happening with the children of Israel. But what's so interesting about development is you guys remember when we used to take pictures on a real camera and they used to have to be developed? And think about the process a picture has to go through to be fully developed. It has to go into a dark room. Come on, somebody. Some of y'all will get this later. See, I believe that when you're going into a place that's bigger than you've ever been before, you cannot see where you're going because you've never been there. You can't fathom it. The children of Israel couldn't see where they were going, so they kept being stuck and having lack of belief, lack of faith. They were worried and all the negative things instead of trusting God. And when you're going to be developed at a new level, you got to understand that it takes a new level of you, which means you got to go into the dark because you don't see where you're going. You don't understand it yet. Y'all with me? See, the word development means to work out the possibilities of, to make active or promote the growth of. I'll say that one more time for the people in the back. To work out the possibilities of, or to make active or promote the growth of. So, this in upgrading means it is allowing your systems to run more effectively. See, when you upgrade and you allow your system to fully be upgraded, it runs more effectively, or I should say, I can even say efficiently. hmm And so you've got to understand that it takes an upgrade. So when I think about my flip phone, even I should have brought it in here. I still have my BlackBerry, y'all. Y'all remember those Blackberries? When I think about my BlackBerry, and why do I still have it? I don't know. Not like I could trade it in because nobody wants that old, out, antiquated BlackBerry. But many of you are operating on an old system. God is trying to put you on 4.4.0 and you on 2.0. And you guys know on your computer, if you are on an old system, your computer will not work. There are certain things that will shut down on you. Listen, this happened to me yesterday. I was trying to prepare this for you guys. And as I was working on it last night, and I had these ideas and I wanted to add it in my PowerPoint wouldn't open. I was like, well, what's going on? Do you know my PowerPoint needed to be updated and I didn't even know it? Usually your system will tell you that, but it didn't. And because I hadn't updated it, my PowerPoint wouldn't even open. See, I need you guys to understand this. This is why many of you are stuck where you are. Listen, you hear me say this Bible verse all the time. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The reason the children of Israel were stuck because they hadn't transformed themselves. They were in the wilderness thinking like Egypt. Instead of having a promised land mentality, instead of focusing on where they're going, they were stuck on where they were. So it took them 40 years to make an 11-day trip. Y'all get that? Because they wouldn't allow themselves to go through the process of development, to transform their mind and grow into the newness. And I see so many high performing women that are stuck here, that don't get to the next place because they won't let themselves be developed, because you're living in the shoulds. Are you worried about perception? And you don't want to tell anybody, you don't know how. You don't want to ask for help, which will keep you stuck right where you are. hmm Here's another Bible verse I want to share here. Matthew 9:17, that says, nor do they put new wine into old wineskins, or else the wineskins break, the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. But they put new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. So when you're doing something new, how could you put old into new? Or new into old, I should say. So if God is doing a new thing, but you're trying to do it the old way. Or God is trying to do a new thing, but you're looking at it from glasses of your past. Or you got a new relationship. This is like me, girl. I just talked about my ex-boyfriend, so let me use this example now. It's like when I started dating my husband. If I brought my baggage from my previous relationship into my current relationship, do I need to say the rest? You have to release yesterday, y'all. I can't say this enough. See, God is going to use everything. What's that Bible verse say? All things work together for the good. All, not some, not a few, not a couple things, but all. So yes, you may listen. Let me ask you a question. I remember I said I was at a conference. This was a couple years. This was before COVID, so it must have been like 2018. And I started talking about how I don't know what I was talking about, but a woman raised her hand and asked a question at this conference I was speaking in. She said, "Do you think that Michelle Obama, it was a waste for her to go to law school?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "Do you think she would have been a phenomenal first lady without her law degree?" Absolutely not. The way she thought about things and processed things and that she learned all in law school. All things work together for the good. Even when she got sick, and you can read this in her book Becoming, when she realized I don't like being a lawyer and she started working in nonprofit and was the vice president of a nonprofit, you think that didn't help her as a first lady? All things work together for the good. So do you think your first, so even if I use myself for an example, I worked in entertainment, casting and production. What do I do with my clients now? Casting and production. Even when I left there and I went to school and got my master's degree in social work. The way that I process things and see things. I always say I'm one part Hollywood producer, one part counselor, and a whole lot of Jesus. Because I've studied business development, entrepreneurship for the last 30 years. So you get all of that wrapped into one. All things work together, not some things. But the question is, do you know your power? Many of you don't. So you don't fully develop it. Come on, somebody. So many of you are only using 20% of your power in your current place that you're working in. So I'm starting to get excited. Many of you are only using 20%. So my allergies acting up now. And because you're only using 20%, you are limiting not just your capacity, but the capacity of the people that need you. See, culture would say, oh, you should be happy where you are. You have a good job and you're progressing well. That's great. But that's here. And God has another level for you. See, the children of Israel were like, well, dang, I was happy in Egypt. I was eating well and they were feeding us good. And we out in this promised land. And why are we in the promised land? Well, I mean, excuse me, we're in the wilderness. And why are we in the wilderness? See, they weren't allowing themselves to learn and develop into what was next. And God to keep you right where you are, stuck, until you do the work to develop who you be on a new level. This is why, by the way, those of you, and I see a couple of my ladies are here that haven't enrolled yet. The Take Off Intensive starts tonight at 8 p.m. EST. This is listen. I'm excited that I get to coach those of you that are ready to start your business. And listen, you either don't know where to begin, you don't know what your niche is, you're not clear on what your purpose is, you don't know how to create it into a business anywhere in between. You need to get in the room. 8 p.m. EST, we start tonight. Wiredfortakeoff.com. If you missed tonight and you're watching the replay, I'm going to leave the link up for you to still be able to sign up after tonight. But let me say this to you. You need to be live on these calls because this is not me just talking. We're doing the work. This is an intensive. It's a relay. Why? Now, my coach suggested that I call this a boot camp, but I didn't like that word boot camp. So I called it intensive, but it really is a boot camp. And I said this on another live. I'm going to say this here, and then I'm going to give you guys number 3. See, boot camp, think about what that is to the military, to the armed service. It is basic training. Many of you don't have the basic training. So you start a business and this is you and it's failed. Or you're stuck in fear. Or you keep procrastinating. And you need a safe space to propel you into what's next. So we're going to talk business foundations. We're going to talk about personal growth. I'm going to help you position the right way to profit and so much more. Go to wiredfortakeoff.com so you can read more about it and grab your seat. I'm excited to be able to coach you. And this is like a boot camp, y'all. It's not going to be just me working. We're going to be working together. I'm excited. So it's going to be coaching and working and go activation. And yeah, we're doing the work every week. Every other week. Sorry, it's calls are twice a month. All right. So with that, I've talked to you about number 1. What was number 1, y'all? Deliverance. Many of you need to be delivered from where you are, but you're stuck. You stuck in yesterday when God has a tomorrow for you. Number two, development. See, when God delivers you, he then wants to develop you. Which moves us into number three. What's number three? Destination. You know that God always has a destination in mind. He always has a destination in mind. Oh, I forgot to give you guys the 3 steps for development. See, I got all excited. Let me go back to development. So, it's time to develop when you stayed at the mountain long enough. Again, children of Israel walked around for 40 years. And when you feel like I've been doing this long enough and oh my God, I feel stuck, or you've been wanting to do this thing, yeah, that means it's time to be developed. It's time to take a break from camp. Maybe you're living in perception. Maybe you're doing the thing that somebody else told you you should do. Or, like for me, this is where I was. I had worked in the entertainment industry for 10 years, and that's all I knew. And that's all my friends ever knew about me. And when I told some of them I wanted to leave, they were like, "Are you crazy?" And I thought I was crazy. So I had to be willing to let go of what everybody else thought and the box everybody else had put me in to go after this thing that was rumbling in my soul. And then you got to be willing to go and take possession of the land. What do I mean by that? Listen, when God puts something inside of you, you've got to be willing to go after it no matter what. I want you to think about anybody you greatly admire. The first person that popped in my mind is Tyler Perry. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be homeless and living in a car. I'm not saying that's not everybody's journey. But he was willing to continue to do that play over and over again. If you haven't watched Maxine's Baby on Netflix, go watch it. Or it makes me think of Pursuit of Happiness. Chris Gardner. Now, again, he's homeless too. I'm not, all these examples I'm using are homeless people. Listen, I'm not homeless, and I'm not trying to be homeless, Lord. I'm not. Right? That's why I want to get fully developed completely without having to be homeless. But it doesn't mean I haven't gone through some tough things. Because listen, the enemy comes to do what, y'all? Steal, kill, and destroy. So he's going to do whatever it takes to keep you from doing the thing that God has crafted you to do. That's why you got to be committed to development. So you can knock off all the steal, knock off all the kill, knock off all the temptation. Listen, if Jesus was tempted, then why do you think that you won't be tempted? I'm just saying, okay? Because I don't want you to miss your promised land, which moves us into number three, okay? Number three is the destination. God always has a destination in mind. God had a destination in mind when you were born, right? Listen, I didn't write this down, but there's a Bible verse that talks about the fact that you were predestined, right? Hold on, I have that over here. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined. I'm going to walk my ladies through this in the takeoff. So I have these notes over here on the side of me, right? See, before you were born, God already knew when you would be born, how he would use you, and why he would use you. He knew the exact way he needed you at the exact time and the exact group of people you are the answer to. And so you've got to understand that when we talk about needing an upgrade to go to your destination, it gives you enhanced usability and performance. Come on, somebody. So when you begin to understand the destination that God has you on. So again, if I use myself for an example, when I left entertainment, I didn't get this at the time. Listen, again, I had to go in development. I didn't see where I was going, but I see it now. See, what I realized God was doing was he was expanding my use of my production gift and my casting gift. I didn't see it then. And with every experience I've had from going to graduate school, from teaching at a university level, to then working with people like Steve Harvey and all the things I've been able to do in the last 20 years, working Blue Cross Blue Shield and McDonald's, all the people, I see how God has expanded my usability and performance with every experience that I've had. But I had to be willing to grow my gift. Some of that was hiring coaches. Some of that was degrees. Some of that was sitting under coaches. Some of that was, if I'm honest with you, I worked with one of my coaches for so long, and then I started volunteering with her after I was finished. I was like, I ain't leaving you, girl. Right? Because I realized if I'm going to grow on this next level, I needed to get under somebody that was going to teach me how to do it. And many of you, God is already, not many of you, God has a destination in mind for all of you. But unless you do the 3 things you've got to do to upgrade your own system. See, there's a system in you called your purpose. That's the power that's in you. And many of you are running on an old antiquated system. It's the 1985 version of you. Some of y'all, or maybe 1995, whatever it is, that's old. So like I told you, we moved to my house in 2007. And the system that my husband was so excited about, music in every room, didn't work. You know all he needed to do? Can I tell y'all? He just needed to upgrade one little thing in the system. Once he did that, and it came from me asking this, is there Bluetooth on that thing? And he looked at me. And what's so interesting is when in 2007, I don't think there was Bluetooth, or the man that built it didn't put Bluetooth on it. And so it was cords and having to plug in stuff. And I was like, we don't need that anymore, do we? And my husband looked at me, and he went and did a couple things, and he was so excited. And then all of a sudden, in 15 minutes, instead of $20,000 that Best Buy was trying to get him to buy, he just needed to upgrade the system. And my husband's a physicist, by the way. So he has a PhD in physics. So if he can't figure it out, it ain't happening. And all he needed to do was upgrade the system, and now we have music all over our house, outside. It's a lot. But it took him $20. He needed to buy one little part, upgraded the whole system. And many of you, the reason your business isn't working, or the reason you haven't started, or anywhere in between, is because you need to upgrade. And those of you that are ready, I'd be happy to help you get to that upgrade. That starts tonight. And the Takeoff Intensive, again, I'm going to put it up here one more time. Takeoffintensive.com starts tonight. If you haven't gotten your seat, takeoffintensive.com. So listen, I got one more part in this series. One more part. I thought it was going to be 3 parts, but I got a 4th one as I was writing this one. So I'll be back Monday to close out this series. Those of you that are already signed up for the Takeoff, I look forward to talking to you in about 30 minutes. I'm excited to start with you tonight. And come with your pen and your paper, because we coming to do the work, y'all. All right. So last thing, if you got any value out of this conversation tonight, can I ask you to do me a favor? Number 1, share it. Number 2, and by the way, when I ask you to share it, I'm not asking you to share it to grow my followers. I'm asking you to share it to be obedient to my calling. One, because somebody in your camp needs this insight, or has been praying about it, or has been thinking about it. And by you sharing the video, it puts it in her feed, and listen, it gives her exactly what she's been looking for. And then number 2, share one thing you got value out of this conversation. Okay. Now, again, if you miss any of it, go back and watch it on YouTube channel. So you can be caught fully up, and we'll do part 4, which will be the culmination of this series. Do you know your power? Next Monday. All right. Have a good rest of your day, y'all. I'll see you soon. Bye.